Good day, learners. How are you today? Today we'll be looking at the topic which says theory of demand. Theory of demand. We can overemphasize the importance of demand to the economy. Now, if I will take you back a little to your previous knowledge on macro and microeconomics, which were introduced to when you were in grade 10, first 10. The theory of demand is under the microeconomics, and then the topic is a very sensitive one because demand is an important variable that determines the prosperity, the development of a country. Now, you can imagine if a producer produces a commodity and people are not buying that commodity, or it produces a commodity and the demand for such commodity is low, definitely it has some effects on not only the producer now, but all other economic agents. It affects the household because the household will not be able to supply labor. It affects the government because money that the government will collect as tax will reduce. There will be mass unemployment in the country. Today, countries like China, the Asian countries, and even specifically talking about the Asian tigers, the four Asian tigers are doing fine because there is high demand for their commodity. Countries like America is doing fine because there's high demand for their commodity. And that is why if the demand for a commodity is high and the supply is meeting up with the demand, definitely there will be more money rolling into the purse of the supplier or the country at large. And that is why demand is a very important topic which we'll be looking at today. So, definition of demand. What is demand? Demand simply means the quantity of goods and services that a consumer is willing, check that word, that's why I underlined it, is willing and able to buy at a particular price and time. So these are the keywords underlined there: goods and services, willingness, ableness, price, and time. These variables must come together because before you can have what we call effective demand. So if an household or an individual goes to the market and he saw a cloth that he or she likes, but there's no means to buy it, it shows that demand is not effective because though he's willing to buy the cloth because he likes the cloth, but he is not able to buy that cloth. Why? Because he might not have the purchasing power to do such. So you can only have effective demand. You can only have effective demand if the consumer is willing and able to buy that particular product at a particular price and at a given time. Then we say demand is effective. So effective demand means buying a commodity, meaning is more than just wishing or desiring to buy a commodity. You must be able to back up that willingness, that desire with the ability to pay for such commodity. Then you say you you have demanded for the commodity, meaning demand is effective. So let's go over the definition again. Demand can be defined as the willingness and the ability of a consumer to buy a particular product at a particular price and at a given time. So you can coin it the way you want to, but just make sure that the key points are in the definition. So, and that's how your demand curve looks like, where you have your price there, and you have your quantity in the x-axis, while your price is in the y-axis. So you can see that your demand curve slopes downward from the left to the right. It slopes downward from the left to the right. I will tell you the reason why that is happening very soon. So the law of demand, what is the law of demand? Law of demand states that the higher the price of a commodity, the lower the quantity demanded. Now, this is what we call the normal law of demand. Of course, the law of demand is two. We have the normal law and the abnormal law. The abnormal law we'll be looking at later, but for now, I'm concentrating on the normal law of demand. So the normal law of demand states that the higher the price of a commodity, the lower the quantity demanded of such commodity, and vice versa, ceteris paribus, meaning every other thing being equal. So as the price of a commodity is increasing, the quantity demanded for that commodity will reduce. As we all know that a consumer will be ready to pay any price for a commodity if the utility of that commodity, meaning if the satisfaction is going to gain from that commodity is high. So it will be ready to pay any price for that commodity. But as the utility or the satisfaction is going to derive from that commodity is low, then you will not be willing to uh, pay high price on such commodity. So indirectly, we can say your demand curve is a representative of the behavior of an individual or an household in the marketplace. So take note of this as well, that the reason why your demand curve slopes from the left to the right is that there's a negative relationship, or we call an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded of the commodity. There's an inverse relationship between price and demand, meaning as price goes up, quantity demanded will go down. As you can see from the diagram I showed you earlier, when the price is P1, quantity demanded is Q1. But as the price increased from P1 to P2, quantity demanded reduced from Q1 to Q0. So as the price increased from P1 to P2, quantity demanded reduced from Q1 to Q0. So now this is another example showing us the relationship between your price and your quantity demanded. So as you can see, you have point A, point B, and point C. At point A, price is high, quantity demanded is low. At point B, as price is decreasing from point A to point B, quantity demanded is increasing. So, and as price reduced from point B to point C, meaning as price reduced from P2 to P3, quantity demanded is increasing from Q2 to Q3. So you agree with me that there's a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded of commodities, but not all commodities. But generally, the normal law of demand says that there is a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. That will take us to what we call demand schedule. Demand schedule. Now, what the demand schedule does is to show the relationship in a tabular form, the relationship between price and quantity demanded. So it's a table that represents the law of demand. It's a table that represents the law of demand by showing the relationship between quantity demanded and the price of the commodity at a given time. So in this case, we are looking at the demand schedule of Mrs. Obi, and we have its demand. That's the price per tin of milk, while we have quantity demanded per month. So as you can see that as the price of milk increase from 80 sorry, decrease from 80 to 70 to 60 to 50 to 40. So that is a decrease in the price of milk. The demand for milk is on the rise. So as you can see, it is increasing. So I will be explaining this more, uh, taking you through uh, this table there. So we still have Mrs. Obi's demand schedule here, which I've explained earlier, that the price of milk as it is reducing, then the quantity demanded is increasing. So let's see. So meaning as this one is reducing, as you can see, reducing, quantity demanded is increasing. So you see that as price is reducing, or you can look at it the other way around, as price is increasing from 40 to 80, is increasing, quantity demanded is reducing from, sorry, quantity demanded is increasing from 10 to 30. So we can draw this uh, on the demand curve. But take note of this. Your demand curve looks something like this. Your demand curve is something like this. Okay, where you have the price there. You have the price here, price, and then you have the quantity. Okay, and then you have your curve like that there. Now let me just do a quicker sketch for you to get what I'm trying to explain. So now if let's assume the price is 5 naira, we're assuming because you need to assume a lot. If the price is 5 naira, so quantity demand, they just trace it to the curve and down. So quantity demanded, let's assume is 10. So remember to put D there to show its demand curve, and then D here to show its demand curve. So now as the price increase from 5, increase in price from 5 to let's say 10. So what you need to do is just to trace it to the curve again. When it stops, then bring it down. So you agree with me that in this case, there is a reduction in quantity demanded from 10 to let's say 2. Okay. Now, if there is a fall in price, what will happen? If there's a fall in price to let's say around 2. So let's put the sign of the currency. I'm using Nigeria as a case study, so I'll be putting Naira there, Naira, yeah, Naira, 2 Naira there, as you can see, and then we have 10 Naira there, as you can see. So if the price is now 2 Naira, now let's trace it to the curve to see what will happen. Okay, so we'll be having something like, let me clean this away. Sorry about that. Okay, so we'll be having something around, let me just put it there, an increase in to around 12 Naira. So now you agree with me that the law says as price of a commodity is increasing, as the price is increasing, quantity demanded of such commodity will reduce, and as the price of a commodity is reducing, as the price of a commodity is reducing, quantity demanded of such commodity will increase. Sectorial variables, meaning all other variables being equal. So this is the law of demand. The law of demand: increase in price leads to a decrease in quantity demanded, and then a decrease in quantity demanded leads to an increase in quantity. A decrease in price leads to an increase in quantity demanded. So having said that, I would like to use this to draw so that you know how you draw your demand curve. So I want to use the table, which is our demand schedule now. Remember, I told you what demand schedule is. Is a table like a tabular representative of the law of demand. So what will I do now? So going back to this. Okay, so now you can see that the price there ranges from 40 to 80. So just put a 0 here, which shows the origin. So we have 40. So take note of this. I would like to use a scale. It's very important to use a scale so that you get it right. Very important to use a scale. But because of the purpose of this class, I'll be using um, 20. So every unit represents 20 uh, units. 20 units, meaning 2 centimeters represent 20 units. So I'll be putting 20 here. Okay. So the next will be 40. 40 followed by 60, then followed by 80. It's very important that the gap between your numbers are the same. So from 0 to 20, from 20 to 40, from 40 to 60, from 60 to 80. Why? For um, this is the price section. Make sure you label fully, and this is the quantity section. So I'll be using a scale there of 2 centimeter to 10 unit as well here. So that'll be 10. We have 20. We have 30. Okay, and then let me just put 40 there, but we don't really need the 40 because our quantity demanded is not to 40. So let's draw. So we have from 80 down to 10. So 80, don't mind, go to 10. Then we have from 70 will be in the middle here to 15 will also be in the middle of 10 and 20. So we have 60 to 20. Okay, so you draw it now. Then we have 50 will be in the middle there to 25. Sorry, let me move that. 50 to 25 will be in the middle there. Then we have 40 to 50. So what you need to do is to connect these points together, connect the coin together, and you have your demand curve. So and that's how you draw it, your demand curve. I believe yours will be neater than mine. So you have your demand curve. So you can see that as the price is increasing as the price is increasing from 20 to 40. Quantity demanded is reducing. So see, when the price is 40, 30 was demanded. When the price is 60, 20 was demanded. When the price is 80, 10 was demanded. So there's a decrease in quantity demanded. So going back to the table again, and that is what we have seen there. So I would like you to do some examples yourself as we go on. So the demand curve. So what is your demand curve? So from this table that you have seen, you can generate your demand curve just as I have done uh, from the table and the graph I showed you earlier. So you can generate your demand curve. So this is how your demand curve will look like. So what is your demand curve? The demand curve is a graphical representative or representation of the law of demand, while your demand schedule is a tabular representative of the law of demand. So I want you to get the difference. Your demand curve is a graphical representative of the law of demand, while your demand schedule is a tabular representative of the law of demand. So now, your demand curve, which is I call the normal demand curve. We have the abnormal demand curve, just like we have the normal demand law. We have the abnormal demand law. So this is the normal demand curve, which slopes from the left to the right. And I told you that there's a negative relationship between your price and quantity demanded. So as your price increases, quantity demanded reduces, and as your price reduces, quantity demanded increases. We have seen all this. What are the factors that affect demand? What are the factors that affect demand? Now, before we go into the factors that affect demand, I would like to show you a quick video, a short video on what we've discussed. So just for about 3 minutes, and I will stop it.
Hey, how you doing, students? This is Mr. Clifford. Welcome to Econ Movies. Today we're going to look at the economics in Indiana Jones. As you know, Dr. Jones isn't an economist. He's an archaeologist.
We do not follow maps to buried treasure, and X never, ever marks the spot.
Sounds pretty boring. Let's look at one of the most important concepts in all of economics: demand and supply. It all starts with buyers and sellers.
You bring me Nohachi. There he is.
This Nohachi's a real small guy.
They come together to negotiate a price that works for both of them. The buyer wants to pay the lowest price possible, but the seller doesn't have to accept that offer.
The diamond, Lau. The deal was for the diamond.
Now, if the buyer really wants that product, he's going to have to increase the price to something that the seller is willing to take. In this example, there's just one buyer and one seller. When you start analyzing multiple buyers and sellers, then you're looking at markets. To understand markets, Indiana Jones needs to find somebody to teach him demand and supply. To learn about demand and supply, let's pick a market that we can analyze. So let's pick something like pet snakes.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Let's start with demand. To have demand, buyers must be willing and able to buy pet snakes. Now, obviously, some people like pet snakes and some people don't.
There's a big snake in the plane, Chuck! Oh, that's just my pet snake, Reggie! I hate snakes, Chuck! I hate them!
When price is really high, let's say $100 for a pet snake, people don't want to buy very many snakes. In this case, only 10 would be purchased. After all, there's a bunch of substitute pets you could buy instead. You could buy a pet tarantula, a pet elephant, or a pet camel.
No camels.
Okay, no camels, no camels. If the price was lower for snakes, consumers would be willing and able to buy more snakes. In this case, if the price is down at 2, then consumers would want to buy 300. So this downward sloping demand curve shows you the law of demand, the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded.
So from the video now, you've seen, I believe you have a good understanding of what demand is. So we'll be looking at the factors that affect demand, the factors that affects demand. And then we have about 9 factors here, about 9 factors that affects demand. We have price of the commodity itself. We have price of other commodities. We have consumers' income. We have consumers' population. We have change in taste and fashion of the consumer. We have weather conditions. We have a period of festivity, of what we call festivity period. We have taxation, and we have government policy. All these affect demand either positively or negatively. So I'll be explaining with some equations as we go on. So the first one is the price of the commodity, which is, I tag PX there. So if the price of the commodity is high, definitely, as you have seen, the demand for that commodity will be low. So the more of a commodity is usually bought at a lower price than at a higher price. To take note of that. So example, if the price of milk is 80, you agree with me that more of milk will be bought than when the price is 150, than when the price is 150. So now the second is the price of other commodities, the price of other commodities. Now let me quickly use this to explain. I want you to go with me. I want to use this to explain. We have the price. So what I did was to use some symbol, alphabet symbol, to represent each of these, where the price of uh, the commodity itself is PX, the price of other commodity is PY, we have income as Y, we have population as POP, we have taste as TA, fashion as FA, weather as W, we have a festivity period as FE, taxation as TX, and government policy as GP. So now take note of this. I'll be explaining. Take note of this. Now, as the price of a commodity, of the price of the commodity increase, as I said earlier, the quantity demanded of such commodity will reduce. Okay, commodity will reduce. So you agree with me that there's a negative relationship. There's a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded for factor 1. So factor 1, which is price of the commodity itself. Price of the commodity itself. So let's say our X is milk, or let's say our X is any other commodity of your choice. So as the price of that commodity increases, the quantity demanded of that commodity will reduce. So the price of other commodities, in this case, change in the price of other commodities may influence the demand of a commodity. There is, to a truth, we have two types of commodity. We have commodities that are of substitutes to each other, and we have commodities that complement one another. So we have substitute goods and we have complementary goods. So substitute goods are goods that are competing. They are competing and you can change them. If you don't use this, you can use that. So a good example is your margarine and butter, your tea and coffee, your gari and semo. If the price of one increase, the consumer may switch over to the substitute. So commodities have close substitute. Let's see. So uh, let me take Gary and Semo. Let me take Gary and Semo. So in this case, our Gary is G and our Semo is S. So if the price of Gary is I, take note of that. If the price of Gary is I, what do you think will happen to the quantity demanded of Semo? It's a question. If the price of Gary is high, what do you think will happen to the quantity demanded for Semo? Definitely, the quantity demanded for Semo will increase. Why? Because these goods are competing. So, you see, if the price of Gary is high, then because I have alternative, I will go for Semo. So, meaning if the price of margarine is high, you show that the demand for margarine will be low, and then you go for a close substitute that the price is low. Okay, so meaning if the price of 7 Up is high, so if the price of 7 Up is high, definitely what do you expect? People will switch from 7 Up and demand for more of Coke. So if this happen, it shows that the commodity in question are close substitute or what we call competitive goods. So in this case, if the commodity in question are competitive, then the relationship there between the price and quantity demanded will be positive. So positive. Take note of that. Now, if the commodity in question are complementary one another, they complement one another or they are jointly demanded. So another name for complementary goods is jointly demanded goods, jointly demanded goods. While another name for your substitute goods is your competitive goods. So for your complementary goods now, let me draw that there. If the price, so let's take, we have examples like pen and ink, we have camera and film. These are goods that you demand together. Car and petrol, you demand together. So a decrease in the price of one will lead to an increase in demand for the other, as well as an increase in demand for one will lead to a decrease in the demand for the other. So let's see. So I want to take pen and ink in this case, pen and ink. So if the price of pen P is high, if the price of pen is high, what do you think will happen to the quantity demanded for ink? Because they are jointly demanded. And if the price of pen is high, definitely people will not want to buy pen, and that will affect the demand for ink. So the demand for ink will be low. I hope you got that. So the demand for ink will be low. So let me use another example. Let me use a car and petrol. So if the price of a car, if the price of car is high, if the price of car is high, definitely it affects the demand for petrol, because once the price of car is high, the demand for car will be low. And once the demand for car is low, it affects the quantity demanded for petrol. So petrol will be low. So in this case, we can say there's a negative relationship if the commodity in question is complementary goods. And if it's of close substitute or competitive goods, then there's a positive relationship. So going back to this, so you agree with me that this can either be positive or negative. Now looking at income, Looking at income, if your income is high, if your income is high, what do you think will happen if your income is high? Definitely, you tell me that quantity demanded of your commodity will be high. Am I right? Of course, you are right to an extent. You are right to an extent. But take note of this. Depending on the kind of goods that you are buying. So we have two type of goods here. We have quickly we have two type of commodities there. So the size of income determine to a large extent what the individual will want to buy. So the price, if the income of the commodity of the consumer is high, is willing to buy more of the commodity, and it will buy less if the price is low. Yes, that's I've said. I said to a large extent, it is true, but that would depend. Take note of that. That would depend on the nature of goods. We have in this case we have the normal goods. We have the normal goods which I will connote as NO, and we have the inferior goods, which I will use that as symbol inferior goods. So if the commodity in question is a normal good, so as your income increase, take note of that, as your income increase, the demand for such commodities will also increase because it's normal goods. Okay, for example, your groceries. Of course, as my income increase, I will buy more of quality shirts. As my income increase, I will buy more cars. As my income increase, I will buy more of the normal goods. But when we talk about the inferior goods, we'll be looking at that later. We're talking about second-hand goods. Okay? And as is an English word, inferior. They are inferior to you. So if the commodity in question are inferior, and as your income increases, the quantity demanded of such commodity will reduce. So in this case, your normal goods and your inferior goods. So for normal goods, as your income increase, quantity demanded of such commodity will increase. Now, if they are inferior, if inferior means second-hand goods, for example, we have markets where they have second-hand goods. In Nigeria, we will call them bend down select. Okay? So, and in some other countries, there are some goods that are inferior. For example, in Britain, used clothes are inferior. In America, potato is inferior. Okay, so such commodities, as your income increase, you consume less of such commodities. So now you also agree with me that depending on the kind of goods, you can either have positive relationship or negative relationship. Now that will take us to population. Population. So for population, as your population of the country increase, definitely the quantity demanded will increase. So I will put this in an equation form. So I want you to go along with me. So as the population increase, then quantity demanded will increase. Taste. So let me put that there for taste. Okay, let me put taste here. So taste. If the taste is good, wow, if the flavor is good, many people buy more of such commodities. So if the taste is good, it's positive, then definitely quantity demanded increase, will increase. But if the taste is bad, meaning if the taste is negative, if the taste is bad, when it is negative, definitely your quantity demanded of such commodities will fall. I want you to get that. So you agree with me that there's a positive relationship here, a positive relationship there. I mean, if the taste is high, quantity demanded will be high. If the taste is low, quantity demanded will be low. So it's a positive relationship. Why for fashion, if the fashion is trending, if it's a trending fashion, definitely that will be positive. Quantity demanded will also be positive if it's a trending fashion. For example, I believe you guys know the trend now. The phone that is raining, the clothes that is raining, you want to buy more of such commodity. Okay? But if it's an old fashion, old clothes in stock, which I'll tag negative. So if it's negative, when it's down, then the quantity demanded as well will be low. Will be low. Okay, so we agree with that that's positive as well. So for weather as well, if the weather is good, then quantity demanded. If the weather is good, the quantity demanded will be high, and if the weather is bad, it can affect quantity demanded. Also, during festivity period, people buy more goods and services. They buy more of such commodities. So quantity demanded will be high. Take note of that. So this is positive as well. During festivity period, the demand for goods and services is always high. For tax, if you are taxed, it affects your purchasing power. Therefore, quantity demanded will be low. So it's a negative relationship between quantity demanded and tax. Quantity demanded and tax. So if the tax is high, quantity demanded will be low. Take note of that. Quantity demanded will be low. And if tax is low, quantity demanded will be high. Now, if government policy, it might be good policy. If the policy is okay, then your demand will be okay. For example, if government policy says close the border, don't import such commodity, which is negative to an extent, then quantity demanded of such commodity as well will be affected. Okay, will be affected. So that might be negative. Okay, so will be affected to some extent because quantity demanded will be high because there's a shortage in demand of such a commodity. So as the price will go up of such commodities, and people might want that commodity in question. Okay, but as I said, depending on the government policy, you can't say it will go this way or it will go that way, depending on the government policy we are talking about. Now, putting this in an equation form, we have quantity demanded there, quantity demanded of let me say x. X is a function. It is a function of px. You know what it stands for? Okay, which is negative in nature, comma. We have a price of other commodities, which can be positive or negative, comma. We have income, which is positive or negative, as I've said. We have population. We have population, which is positive. Okay. We have weather. We have weather, which is a positive relationship. We have festivity period. We have festivity period, which is positive as well. We have taxation, negative, and then government policy can either be positive. Government policy can either be positive or negative. So you put that in bracket. Now, all this is what we call the dependent variable. We call it the dependent variable, and these are what we call the endogenous variable. While these are the independent variable, or what we call the exogenous variable, independent variable. Okay, so quantity demanded reacts to all this. So if this increase or decrease, it affects quantity demanded. That's why we say quantity demanded depends on this to survive. So all these you are seeing are your independent variable, while your quantity demanded is your dependent variable. So if this increase, it affects this. If this increase, it affects this. If this increase, it affects this. Okay. So now to get a good explanation in terms of writing, you have it there in your note, talking about population there. So as the size of population increase, then the demand for that commodity will also increase. So take note of that. I said if the demand increase, there is a likely that there will be an increase in demand for food and other essential of life, while a decrease in population size will lead to a decrease in the total demand. Then taste and fashion, which I've explained. Taste relates to the like of a consumer. Now, the consumer will buy more of the commodity if he prefer the taste and buy less of the commodity. So if there's a change in taste, it is favorable to the commodity, then the demand will be high. Why? If the change in taste is not favorable, is against a commodity, then the demand will be low. Now, you say example there, if more consumers prefer rock beer to star beer, then the demand for rock beer will go up while the demand for star beer will fall. Fashion, as I've said, if the cloth is trending, if it's in vogue, the demand will be high, and if it's out of vogue or if it's out of trend, the demand will be low. I want you to try this activity. Try that activity, okay, and then submit through the normal means. So we have the abnormal demand law. Remember, I said we have the normal demand law and we have the abnormal demand law. So now another name for the abnormal demand law is what we call the exceptional demand law. Exceptional demand law. Now, the curve looks like this. That's how the curve looks like, which slopes uh, downwards from the right to the left, which is against the normal law. Now, the abnormal law states that the higher the price, the higher the quantity demanded. That's the abnormal law. The higher the price, the higher the quantity demanded. Why the lower the price, the lower the quantity demanded. That's why we call it abnormal. It is abnormal. It is the opposite of your normal law. Your normal law states that the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded, and the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. So what are the reasons for this abnormal law? We have four reasons. We have inferior or given goods, which I've explained earlier, that if the commodity in question is inferior, as your income increase, the demand for such commodity will reduce. Their demand decrease with an increase in income of the consumer. So once this happens, you know that the commodity in question is inferior. Now, inferior goods is more consumed by the low income earners in every community. We have people that are poor. In countries, we have countries that are poor, most especially in the African region. So they are more classified under the low income earners or the consumer of inferior goods. I said they do not consume them because of how perfect they are or how good they are. They consume them because they don't have any other choice. They don't have any other alternative. Okay. But when there is an increase in their income, then they will be able to have alternative. They will be able to go for substitutes. So a good example of inferior goods in West Africa we have cassava, which is gari, and in Britain it is a potato, while in US it is a used clothes. All these are inferior goods. So as their income of the citizen increase, the quantity demanded of such commodity will fall. We have articles of ostentation, or what we call the snob appeal. These are commodities that the rich people um, acquire just to show off. Even when their price is high, they still buy more of it. They still buy more of it because of the snob appeal they have, because they want to show their friends and that, oh, this commodity is expensive. So because of its high price, they go for it. So a good example is the luxurious cars that you have. They want to buy more of such commodity, gold, diamond. They want to buy more of such commodity. So they are willing to buy more, pay more price for this commodity, as because the price of such commodity is high, and because it has a snob appeal. They want to show their friends that they are rich. So this is common among the rich, which is abnormal. Which is abnormal. We have expectation of future rise in price. So if there is an expectation that the price of commodity will rise in the future, then there will be that fear now for people to buy more. So if people fear that price will increase or fall in future, if people feel that their price will rise further in the future, they will purchase more of the commodity now, even when the price is high. So a good example is this: if the price of petrol will be high in the next future, what happens now? People will be buying and stocking petrol. Okay, even when the price is even high now, people will still buy it because of the fear that next tomorrow or next month the price of petrol will increase. Just imagine if federal government announce that next week or next month that the price of petrol in Nigeria will increase from 150 to 500. What do you think will happen now? People start stocking now. Even now, we are complaining that the price is high, 150 naira. But people start stocking it because of the fear that the price will be high in the next 1 month to 500 naira. On the other hand, if they feel that the price will fall in the next future, what will happen now? They will not purchase. So the demand for that commodity will be low. Even when the price is low now, they will not purchase, which is also abnormal. We have commodities that are rare, these antiques that are rare, okay, and you see them being auctioned, artwork, old cars, jewelries, being auctioned, and when you see people bidding for it, even when the price is low, they'll be competing, and even as the price goes up and up and up, you see them competing until they get the person that wants that commodity will be ready to pay any amount to get it, which is abnormal. People are often willing to pay a higher price to own a rare commodity. However, at low price, the demand for them is normal. Yes, if it's at low price, the demand is normal. But if it's high price, then it becomes abnormal. It becomes abnormal. So, types of demand, I've made mention of this. Types of demand, I've made mention of 2 and 3. So, let me rush through this as well. Types of demand, we have the derived demand. Derived demand. Now, these commodities under this derived demand, you are not demanding for such commodity because of what the commodity can give you. You are demanding for the commodity because of what you can use the commodity to buy or to get. I'll say that again. The demand for these commodities are not for your immediate satisfaction or your wants. No. But you are demanding for the commodity because the commodity can help you to get other commodities. A good example is money. Now, if you are demanding for money, you are not demanding for money because of the immediate satisfaction you can get from money. No. You are demanding for money because of what money can give you. Okay, so meaning you can use money to buy other commodity. So such goods is under your derived demand. We have labor. You are demanding for labor, not because of what labor can give you. You can't obtain direct satisfaction from labor. No. But you are demanding for labor because labor can now be used to produce goods and services. So we call that derived demand. So money and labor are good example of your derived demand. We have your joint and complementary demand, which I've explained when I was looking at factors that affect demand. So when a commodity are demanded together, for example, car and petrol, toothpaste and brush, we call them joint or complementary demand. So as the price of one increase, the quantity demanded of the other will reduce. Take note of that. As the price of one, meaning as the price of car increase, the quantity demanded of petrol will reduce. Why? Because they are jointly demanded. So if the price of one is high, meaning you don't need the second one. The third one is competitive or substitute goods. These are goods that are competing. These are goods that you can use to replace one another. Okay? These are goods that are of close substitute. A good example is Coke and Pepsi, Lux soap and Joy soap. And then we have margarine and butter. We have a lot of them. Coke and Fanta and name them. So they are competing. They are competing. So if the price of Coke increase, definitely people will not want to drink Coke again. They will go for Pepsi. So the demand for Pepsi will increase. Okay? And if the price of Coke reduce, then depending on the price of Pepsi. So if the price of Pepsi is also low, depending on what you want to go for because their price is the same. But if their price is high, one is high more than the other, then you might want to go for one and leave the other. And that's why you see these companies which are in the same industry, they are always competing. If you agree with me that some years ago, Pepsi did a long throat bottle, which was higher in terms of the liquid content, and they sold it for 100 naira. Coke reacted. So, and that's how they are competing. They are competing. The same thing with your MTN and Glow or your Etisalat. They are also competing. So if this brings a promo out, the other will want to also do it because they have close substitute. So you can either use this or use that. Then the fourth one is composite demand. These are demand for commodity that have more than one use. So when you demand for the commodity, for that commodity, you can use it for different purpose. So for example, is your palm oil is a composite demand. You can either use it for cooking or for producing soap or pomade. It has what we call composite demand. So I want you to try this assignment uh, using your graph. Try this assignment, and then I will be collecting it in the next class. So we'll be looking at this in our next topic. Thank you very much.